Okay, good. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Donny Lowry,
and Kirk
and
Prime.
we are delighted to welcome you again to another episode of Queer Tribe Conversations. We are delighted to welcome today David. Oh, David, I'm sorry, I never learned how to pronounce your last name. Is it Benzhawel? Is that right?
It's like Mercedes-Benz and a shawl, Benzhawel.
Benzhawel. Oh
Shaw.
my,
Oh,
interesting.
lovely.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we're delighted to welcome you, David. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we'll
Thank you.
tell you guys, those of you listening, a little bit about David, give you some context. So David was an ordained Catholic priest 42 years ago,
Wow.
and he
Old
pastored
Catholic.
full-time.
Yeah.
Catholic priest, yes,
Old
and
Catholic.
pastored
Yeah.
old Catholic. Oh,
Old
excuse me,
Catholic.
old Catholic. Sorry, you were ordained an old Catholic priest 42 years ago and pastored full-time 3 UFMCC churches. And David has a licentiate degree in spiritual direction, spiritual theology, and taught Reiki energy work online at ReikiAccess.com for the past 25 years. And he's now retired, living in Port Aransas,
Aransas, right.
Texas. Okay. And David is active on Facebook and volunteers in his community.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, David, make sure that you plug the AHO community but welcome, David.
Yes.
And we want to just pick your brain, your
Yes.
heart and your body for your stories. And so the first question we've asked folks for the past 10 years is, tell us about your spiritual journey. Tell us about your awakenings, especially as a queer man, kind of how that's unfolded. So that should be kind of the bulk of our conversation. Then we'll lead into the other two.
Okay. So to give you a little background, ReikiAccess.com has been going on for 25 years. I initially learned Usui Reiki, and that was really my spiritual awakening as far as the energy world and connecting things. So on that, if you go to a tab that says narrated PowerPoint presentations, you'll have different topics. I do a monthly talk each month on different topics. And so one of the interesting things I did last year is I have put together, I'm a published poet, playwright, and musician. So I had put together little snippets of gay plays I have written over the years. And those of us who are my age remembers Color Me Barbara. Remember when Barbara Streisand started? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so I have put that together, and I'm hoping that next year my local community theater will produce it, and it's called Color Me Rainbow, Reflections of a Gay Priest. And so it covers my time from high school up until now on what I've had to deal with. I was raised Roman Catholic, cradle Catholic. In Catholicism, they assume that you have a spiritual connection, but they never teach you how to make that spiritual connection. So interestingly, in high school, I was in a small town in Sheldon, Iowa, which is in northwest Iowa, probably about a town of 5,000. And the local Assembly of God church opened what they called a Jesus cellar. And this was during the 70s with the Jesus People movement. And so I went there, and they showed me, and I asked them to pray in tongues. I had never heard of that before in Catholic Church, but that was back before it went from a Latin Mass to English and everything. So back in Latin, the Roman Catholic Church was the one true church, and everybody else was, not on the right page. So
yeah,
I felt that in order to receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit, I had to be rebaptized by immersion. So we got a group together. I went to the Catholic priest and I said, as an infant, I was baptized, but I want to be rebaptized as an adult. Biblically, it shows, in Acts that when they were baptized, they received the speaking in tongues. And they wouldn't do it, of course. And so I was rebaptized. I got involved in the charismatic renewal. There's a poster that says bloom where you are planted. Well, I felt that from an early age, I would say felt a call to go into seminary. And my folks did not want me to go into a high school seminary because they wanted me to have the co-ed experience. Well, as soon as I had the opportunity, I moved far away from Sheldon to the other side of the state, University of Iowa in Iowa City, and started a bachelor's in theater and speech. And eventually, again, that calling to go into seminary came up. And so I went into a college seminary for diocesan. I had I guess my first emotional or romantic relationship with a fellow seminarian that was never sexual, but was intimate. And so I had a sense that I really wanted to be in community. So I am contemplative by nature. I'm more of an introvert. So I made an observership with the Trappist monks in Dubuque, Iowa. So I lived with them for 30 days and was very comfortable with it. But I really felt that I had gifts and talents to share that could not be utilized if I stayed in a cloister where I didn't have contact with people and I couldn't speak. So I decided to go in with the Franciscans and finish college with them, went into novitiate. During that time, I was publishing a lot of Franciscan plays and things, and I was asked to leave novitiate, and I still felt a very strong calling to be a priest, and so I went to graduate seminary. I came out to my spiritual director, and I said, you know, I think maybe I'm bisexual. And basically he said, well, we only accept people who are heterosexual and celibate. So I don't think this is the right place for you. So this was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I came out finally, and I had my first relationship that lasted 10 years. And the old Catholic Church, to give you a little bit of background, because I always want people not to be confused, because on my business card, I say I'm a retired priest. Well, Old Catholicism goes way back to the 1300s in Utrecht, Switzerland, when a group decided they did not want the Pope to appoint bishops. They did not want to see the Pope as infallible. And so they broke away from the church. They wanted to elect their own bishops. And they have since become very much more home church rather than institutional church. And they do allow gay people, but it's not really talked about. I was in a relationship. I wanted that acknowledged. And the only place at that time I could do that was with the Universal Fellowship of Community Churches. Interestingly, the first gay book I ever read was by Troy Perry, The Lord is My Shepherd, and He Knows That I'm Gay. And so I transferred my credentials to MCC, pastored 3 churches, and started in Santa Barbara, California, Spokane, Washington, and San Antonio, Texas. And ultimately decided that I'm not thick-skinned enough to put up with the drama and politics of pastoring a church. And my calling was more working one-on-one with people. So a licentiate degree is like a master's degree. And I got a master's then in spiritual direction, spiritual theology from the Anglican School of Theology in Dallas, Texas. Interestingly, the Episcopal Church and Anglican Communion recognizes old Catholic orders. And it's interesting that because the Roman Catholic Church is going through such a shortage in vocations, they are now admitting Episcopal priests that are married with children into the Roman Catholic Church to run their parishes. But they still, with their seminarians, insist that they have to be celibate. So to me, there's a hypocrisy there and everything. So, so I've gone through 3 different long-term relationships. So for 32 years of my life, I've lived with a man. The last 9 years, I've lived by myself, and I have gotten more into gay and lesbian spirituality and working with them one-on-one. The tendency I find is that when people come out, and if they're hurt by religion, they tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They think, well, religion hurt me, I can't be spiritual. So I try to help them discover their own spiritual path. And a lot of that, I think, for me, is trying to re-image what I see as God or source. It's not an affirming image for me to see God as Father with a rule book and judging me and waiting for the day of judgment. To me, my source and my connection is the ocean. I go by the ocean. That's my source. That's my church. And so I help people try to re-image in a more affirming way what their spirituality is. And at the same time, when I was attuned to Sui Reiki, I was so enthralled by it. I went out and learned 130 different forms of Reiki and energy systems. Ultimately, I believe in spirit guides. My spirit guide says, why repeat what somebody else has done before? Why don't you discover your own unique form of energy? And so now through Reiki Access, which I do on a donation basis or barter, help people find an energy system that's affirming and special for them. And I before I was put in Facebook prison, I was posting to 26 different groups on Facebook, and I estimate that I had the capacity to reach over 2 million people around the world. And that just blows my mind, because since January, what I've done is I have found a Facebook posting, which they call meme, that resonated with me. And I am in the process of blogging each day about why is that resonating with me? What is the message for me? And talking about my concept now is evolving my soul. And I do that by trying to get in touch and get to know the real me inside, not the person I want other people to see and accept and people please, but who am I inside? And to me, that is called authentic spirituality. And that is where you only talk from your own experience. You don't quote another author. You don't quote the Bible. You say, this is how I have experienced it. I don't expect you to follow this path. I'm doing this only as an example. And I encourage you to follow your heart on where you feel the source is leading you. And to me, the source is our gut intuition, our inner guru, I call it. And so once we, through meditation, can calm down our mind, can really get in touch with our soul. Carl Jung says that's our subconscious mind, that we can learn how we can self-care and love ourselves more fully.
Wow. Juicy stuff. So your journey has equipped you and opened you up to teach about having your own personal experience with the divine and sourcing that in whatever ways that fit your understanding is kind of what I heard you just say. Is that correct?
And
yeah,
that,
excellent.
That goes along. I don't know if many of you have read any books by Henry Nouwen. Henry Nouwen works with they live in a community of people that are differently abled. And so he wrote a book called The Wounded Healer. And his theory is that we who are called to heal first heal ourselves, and then we help pass on that healing ability to other people. And so, I have scars, I have bad memories, but all of those were lessons to help me to get to my point today as a 70-year-old gay man.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So as a 70-year-old gay man who's walked this interesting, eclectic, energetic path, what how do you see us when, you know, I've asked these same three questions for 10 years, but, you know, how do you see us as a gay tribe, or do you?
Well, no, I do. When Troy Perry founded the Universal Fellowship of Metropolitan Community Churches, he thought it was only going to be a transitional church. He thought, the other straight churches would eventually accept gay people. Well, it didn't work out that way, and they developed their own church and everything. And so, I think we as a tribe can speak to issues more intimately than being separated. The Surgeon General says the most rampant disease right now in America is loneliness and depression.
Yes.
Ever since COVID, we have gone into our own little closets again and isolated, and we are hungering to be reconnected again. And I think that's what a tribe does, is reconnects people that are on the same wavelength, that have the same hungers. And, myself, who have worked in the recovery movement, I went to Codependence Anonymous. I really believe that the big book talks about the concept is that the higher power is within us. And we try to cover up that higher power by sex, alcohol, relationships. And that part of us, I call my God hole, is meant for God and God alone. And until we come to terms with being spiritual again and have that awakening, we're always going to have that sense of not being connected, and I think the most important thing in life is to realize there are more things that we have in common than our differences.
Sweet. And anything more that you want to say about how you see us as a queer tribe working together? Because that leads us into our third question, which is what's your vision for us? But anything more about us being a queer tribe?
I don't know how many of you are active on Facebook, but go ahead and Google spiritual gay, and you will see 5, 10, 15 different organizations. Most of them feel like dating sites to me, where they never discuss spirituality, but they say spiritual gay men. And, look at the number of people on there, 14,000 people around the world, gay men. And so, most of them are searching for their better half, and so I always say to them, until you love yourself, how can you love another person, And so there's a real hunger out there. There's, most of us in my age don't go out to bars. Most of us have been scammed by dating sites. Most of us, I think the older you get, you realize maybe there won't be another relationship, but you do seek companionship. You do seek community. You do seek to be connected. You don't want to be discarded. Serena Williams said when she left tennis, she says, I'm not retiring, I'm evolving. And so in our golden years, we are meant to thrive, not just survive. We are meant to experience our second childhood, to see life with new eyes of wonder like a child does, and really go after our bucket list and do things we have put off the majority of our lives.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, I love kind of picking your brain, because I know we've talked before and you've given me a lot of juicy thoughts, but I'll pick it just a little bit further with this queer tribe question. One more. You'll indulge me, and that is just kind of thinking about. I remember 20 years ago, Andrew Raymer talking about how there were kind of all these different tribes, And so he packaged, even 20 years ago, before we started talking this conversation of queer tribe, as much as we are now. But he talked about, well, the lesbian, the women who love women tribe, the men who love men tribe, the asexual tribe, and start putting all these, the alphabet soup that we now play with. But I'm wondering, do you see each one of those groups as a subset of the same tribe, and we're all bringing about some similar kind of energy for healing, transformation, change in the world? Or, are each one kind of separate little tribes, but we're holding the umbrella? I'm just curious to expand the conversation a little bit.
Well, I think it's, real curious that where did the Pride movement start? The Pride movement started in Stonewall at a bar, and it's when drag queens said, you can't stop harassing us. This is our sacred place. This is the only place where we can meet. Get off our backs. And that started the whole movement. And, we have, there is the fairy movement. There is the rural gay movement. There are, many different manifestations. But, Ram Dass said, we are here to help walk each other home. We're not in competition. Nobody has the only right way. It's, we need to realize that we have more in common. I don't feel that the flesh and spirit community is in competition with Aho Gay Men's Spirituality Tribe. We are all doing the same work in many different ways. The more that we can reach out to people and help people have a spiritual awakening is really the beginning of anyone's spiritual journey. And whatever you need to do to get to that point, go for it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Okay, so weaving your journey together, weaving that we are a queer tribe together. Tell us, do you have kind of a glimpse, a vision, an outpicturing of what you imagine we're being called to, we're being propelled to? Talk about a vision for us as queer people.
Well, I always go back to my second companion I lost from AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
And who were the people that came forward to work with AIDS patients?
Mm-hmm.
It was us.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realized it's not just a gay disease, God forbid, it's not God's retribution to wipe the gay people off the planet, and so we are compassionate, loving people, and we are about becoming light bearers. We are, I don't know, many of you are metaphysical, but I believe that we are moving from 3-dimensional to 5-dimensional. We are having a substantial awareness shift. I don't know if you know the theory of the 100th monkey. Anthropologists have studied monkeys who all of a sudden learned a new way to crack a nut, and they taught each other. Well, 20 miles away, another group of monkeys started doing the same thing. And so what that is saying is that there is a universal mind. When there is enough people on the same vibrational level, there's a major shift forward. And this is why I think Trump and fake news and all of that, because anytime there is a major draw towards the light, people are going to want to bring it back. The ego does not want change. The soul says, I'm going towards the horizon. I'm going forward. I am growing. I do not want to repeat old patterns over and over again. And so there's a major shift. I think one of the interesting things is that Swedish scientists have studied the human mind, and the human mind can comprehend 11 different dimensions. So what if our first experience with aliens is on a dimensional level where we are able to go from the fifth dimension to another dimension? We don't need spaceships to do that. We
Mm,
can connect. Uh,
mm,
so I think there's major things happening. And a lot of that has to do with people getting in touch with meditation, learning how to calm what they say, the monkey mind. The monkey mind jumps from thought to thought to thought. And when you can calm the mind and focus it, you can, reach a different dimension,
mm,
I believe. I have had experiences where I have had lucid dreaming. I'm meditating, and all of a sudden, here another storyline comes over, and I feel like I'm walking from one bubble to another bubble. Maybe that's a dimensional shift. Maybe there are other me's in another dimension that are trying to communicate. One
mm,
of my most interesting experience was recently I worked with a college friend who got back in contact with me, and her companion of 48 years died. And for 4 months, I've been working with her because I believe we can communicate with those who have transitioned
uh,
because they are here, but they're just on a different dimensional level. And so we can learn ways for them to communicate with us and us to communicate with them. Catholic Church believes in the concept of a communion of saints, which means the saints are always with us to help and intercede and guide us. So are our loved ones. That connection is never severed. That connection is live and is as vibrant as you want. And your
mm,
companion on the other side will communicate with you up until when you say, I have a new companion, I'm moving on, I need to let you go. But, that's to me is a dimensional shift that we lead the way and say, we are light workers. That's what we
mm,
are. We are kind people. We are loving people. And that tribe is beyond just being gay, lesbian, bisexual. It's a whole movement of awareness that is
yeah,
happening right now.
yeah, great, beautiful. Well, you've given us some juicy thoughts and concepts to play with. And I'm wondering if oftentimes we run out of time, but and we've got great callers in our audience in to ask some questions. So, and
I've seen a
anyone,
lot of this, so I know
yeah,
that I'm
yeah,
getting
yeah.
some.
So let's hear from. So unmute yourself and ask your question or give a comment that David can kind of respond to.
Yes, just go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready to say. We may not see yourself raise a hand, so go ahead and just unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. Go right ahead.
Oh, can I ask? You live in Port Aransas.
Yeah,
Do you have a church or a mission or a
no,
retreat center?
I'm retired. I do offer renewal days where people come to me and they plan out their day of renewal. I believe in mentoring, which I present the buffet of options, and the individual chooses which resonates with them. And
Mhm.
so I have a rental property nearby that I have set up for working families with children, gay and lesbian people, a block and a half from the beach. I'm retired. I live on the beach. And so I work one-on-one with people now. I know I used to have a button when I was with MCC that says the pedestal is the pits. When you're a minister, they expect you to be uh, close to God and not sexual and not dating and all this dysfunctional expectation. So I realized quickly that I burnt out. I'm not involved in politics and not worry about balancing a budget and all that. And so prefer just to work one-on-one with people. Does that answer your question, Toby?
Yeah. Oh, can I just say I grew up in San Antonio, and Port Aransas was our vacation resort. The first gay couple I ever saw was in Port Aransas. I know when it happened.
So, my real ministry is random acts of kindness. I pick up shells on the beach. I make bracelets on a flexible cord, and I go up to people and I give them away to them. And I say, you can say you're taking a piece of Port Aransas with you. And they say, can I pay you for it? I says, no, this is a random act of kindness. And, it's unbelievable if, I go up and I talk to people in the grocery store that use their name and their name tag. People want to be recognized, that don't overlook workers and think they're second-class citizens. We are all on the same path. And so if we can recognize and support each other and show some caring in this world of meanness, I think that speaks a lot.
Yeah. Excellent. Beautiful. Thank you. Who else? Comment, question for David?
I actually have a lot of comments and questions, but I'm trying to pull them all together because there was a lot of beauty shared in this. So I was like,
so much of this. It's like,
I was like,
are you waving at me, or this is applause, for the deaf community?
Brought it in with from the Radical Fairies. That's something that had influenced me and keep going. I was like, very inspired by what you had shared, and a lot resonates with a lot of the practices and engagements that I'm interested in. So I was actually curious right now, while all of these are coming together, are you comfortable with people reaching out to you? Because I would love to continue this conversation a little bit more as well.
Facebook message me, call me on Facebook chat. We can video chat together. It's interesting, I tell people, they say, well, what is your spiritual path now? And I say, well, I'm a pagan Buddhist. So I am a pagan in that my connection to the source is through nature. And I am a Buddhist, believing that I don't believe Buddha was a god, or Buddha was just a messenger like every other messenger. But Buddha talked about the idea is, let's don't be so extreme, let's find a middle way. Let's find a way of individual enlightenment. And to me, Buddhism is best symbolized by the lotus blossom. I don't know if you ever grown lotus. I had a fish pond in my backyard. The lotus blossom will only bloom in muck and mud, and it stinks. And from that mess comes this beautiful blossom that lasts maybe 2 or 3 days, and then it's gone, And so we are meant here to help each other find ways to reach enlightenment.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to meet you. Wow, there's so much of what you said resonates with me. I tend to go in the Taoist direction because for me it's more incarnational and embodied. My husband's Buddhist, so I certainly respect that tradition. But I'd love to hear more about your old Catholic experience, because I'm sort of moving in that direction myself. I'm in Methodist seminary. Had to deal with the church long enough to know that I don't want to be in a church anymore. Yet I feel I have work to do with clergy around the erotic, because they need healing and they're really trapped. So I'm wondering if there's space in old Catholicism for that sort of erotic exploration.
If you find a bishop, you probably, old Catholicism is not institutional church buildings, it's smaller home churches, and so everyone has a valid ministry. You don't have to have an institutional church, but you can have a tribe that you minister to and everything, and a special vocation and everything. So the main thing is to find a bishop that will support you and encourage you. And it's interesting that I have the invitation to go back into the Roman Church. I don't know how many of you know about the Polish National Catholic Church.
Yeah.
PNCC. So PNCC was invited by Rome to come back into full union. They have allowed them to drop the ethnic Polish, and now they're called the National Catholic Church.
Nice.
So it's a National Catholic Church in America. They do have gay ministers. They do elect their own bishops. They do have married clergy. They do have women priests. So they're very progressive and everything. And I wanted to get back to your Buddhist question too. If one of my Buddhist teachers that I am most enthralled with is Thich Nhat Hanh and Zen Buddhism. And, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh said, you know, every generation, Buddha comes back, and Buddha comes back in different cultures. And in that culture, you get all these cultural trappings. Well, in America, he says the next return of the Buddha is not going to be an individual. It's going to be a community of caring. It's going to be a tribe.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Other questions, comments before we close up our time with David?
Well, maybe if you allow me, and if David thinks that it's something that he wants to say anything about, because Toby, you highlighted, Toby, that David is in a specific location, and I'm just wondering what's the importance, or how does our physical environment, whether we're by a beach in a specific city and our shells to be found on the beach, how does that matter, if it matters, to the tribe, or to I'm not sure that I wasn't planning on asking the question, so maybe it's not very well articulated. But
Well,
how does that matter to you, for instance? Could you be David doing the same thing elsewhere if you were in Vermont, if you were in San Francisco, or how do your surroundings influence you, being David? How do they make you you?
So are you familiar, Andrew, with the concept of synchronicity?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay. So synchronicity is when all of a sudden something falls into your lap that you never knew you really wanted, but really feels a deep soul need. Well, for 43 years, I worked, in old Catholicism, it's interesting that the people don't support the minister. The minister works a regular full-time job, and they donate their time to the church. And so I was never paid to be a minister other than with MCC. I worked for AT&T for 29 years and then retired. So I felt, me coming to Port Aransas, I always wanted, when I retired, to have a B&B by the ocean. Well, the older I got, the more I realized I didn't want strangers living in my house. I didn't want to pick up after other people. But a way of the universe doing that is that I have a rental close by, and I have my home here, which I open to people coming and spending. I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, community time and renewal time here. And so for me, in 5 months, I closed on 3 different properties. And so to me, it was like saying, you have done all these random acts of kindness. We're going to reward you back. We're going to put you in a place that you are going to heal and take care of yourself and learn how you can be your best self. And by doing that, you are going to speak to others who want to do the same thing, but don't know about that path. And so with me sharing my authentic spirituality, that has inspired so many people to say, I never thought of it that way. You know, maybe there is a deep need within me that I'm not addressing or I'm not even aware of, you know. And so I don't know if many of you know of, there was a legionnaire from France, and his name is Charles de Foucauld of Jesus. And he felt as a legionnaire, God was calling him to live in Bethlehem in the slums. And so his community goes and lives among the poorest of the poor. And he said, let us shout the gospel from the rooftops, not with our words, but with our lives.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. That might be the juicy quote for closing our time with you, David. Unless anybody has a really burning comment or question before we close.
So I just wanted to mention, if you're really curious about more details about my coming out story, I think one of the exciting things about Pride Month is we need to share our stories with each other. We all have a piece of the puzzle. When we share the piece of the puzzle, the tribe picture becomes more clear. So I wrote a monologue called Welcoming the Stranger. And it's talking about me coming out and all the shit I had to go through. You know, shit happens. We can either use it to bury ourselves or we can use it for a fertilizer for growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you for all the pearls of wisdom, or the shit for new growth that you've offered us today.
How is this available, David? How is this available?
Welcome the Stranger. If you go, I think I earlier mentioned about Color Me Rainbow, the play. If you go to ReikiAccess.com and look under narrated PowerPoint presentations, you will have you can click on and download the file that has all these different plays. And one of the plays is a monologue called Welcoming the Stranger. I also, my second companion who died of AIDS, he was a sex addict. And so I wanted to figure out why he did what he did. And I wrote a monologue called Hot Child in the City. And so just different ways of, you know, why did things happen this way? You know, it's not a curse, it's a lesson. And I think in spiritual growth, it's not linear, it's a spiral. And we learn lessons in a deeper and deeper way as we progress.
Beautiful. Wow. Yeah. And if any of you forget the Reiki Access thing, it's listed on the website. So always come back to qtfleshandspirit.org, and you'll hear this call with David, see his bio and the access that he just spoke of, as well as other calls. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. And to all of you who've been on the call, thank you as always. Know that we'll continue doing these. We have a couple juicy prospects who have said yes. We just haven't figured out the time yet, but I think our beloved Sunil, that some of you might know, who from Nepal, may join us, and a sexological body worker, yoga practitioner is also in the offerings of what's coming up this summer. So juicy stuff. Stay tuned. We love you all. Namaste.
Namaste, everybody.
And Sawyer, feel free to contact me. Anybody can contact me. So I'll be glad to work on one-on-one people. So
perfect.
What's
Thank
your
you. And we also
Facebook
just happened to be
handle?
in Texas.
my Facebook is David Benzhawel. Or you can
Thank
join
you.
Aho Spiritual Community, Spiritual Tribe, or I have another one called Spiritual Friends Gathering. So those are the main Facebook pages I have.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kirk and Donny.
Of course.